From 1972, it's the Bib Hi-Fi Stereo Test Cassette, How to Get the Best Stereo and Mono Reproduction and Recording.
I am speaking from the left. My name is David.
I am speaking from the right. My name is Mary.
I am still on the left. This is a quick channel identification test.
And I am still on the right. If you are not hearing us on the correct channels, then either the leads between your loudspeakers and your equipment are the wrong way round, or if you are using a separate amplifier with your tape unit, the leads between them are reversed.
If you also have a turntable unit and you have a stereo test record, you'd better check that also. This side of the tape will enable you to test your equipment for reproduction.
The other side of the cassette will deal principally with recording problems. Perhaps I should emphasize, by the way, that this cassette tape has been recorded with the Dolby noise reduction system, which means that when played on a machine also equipped with a Dolby system, tape hiss should be eliminated. If you are playing the cassette on a machine not so equipped, then you should reduce your treble tone control. We now want you to check that you are getting equal volume from each channel. At the moment, you should be hearing my voice located exactly in the central position. If my voice is not in the central position, then adjust your balance or volume controls until it is. As an additional check, we are going to play you some stereophonic music. If your speakers are correctly balanced, then you should hear the piano on your left-hand side, the double bass on your right-hand side, and the drums exactly midway between your two speakers.
When you hear a stereo tape reproduced correctly, the sound should not just come from the left or right, but should be spread out from and between your loudspeakers according to the positions in which the instruments of the orchestra were located when the recording was made, or where the speakers or singers were located at the recording session.
I am back on the right. In a few moments, I'm going to move over to the left. So that you can hear me as I move, I'm going to start up a metronome and walk over to David on the left while the metronome ticks.
Hello, Mary. Thanks for visiting me on the left-hand side. I will now go over to the right-hand side and take the metronome with me. I hope you will have followed my walk over to the right-hand side from where I'm now speaking.
You will have heard these movements clearly only if your equipment is balanced accurately, so that the same level of sound is being heard correctly from both channels.
As you know, I'm on the right, but I will now move to a central position. Here I am in the central position, and I assume you heard me walk across from the right. If your loudspeakers are in phase, you should hear my voice coming only from the central position. It should not be spread out between the loudspeakers.
I will use a metronome again and will walk across to David in the central position.
Loudspeakers in phase means that they have been connected to a tape or amplifier unit in such a way that the cones in the speakers move inwards and outwards at the same time, and not in opposite ways, which would tend to reduce the bass reproduction and make precise location of sound difficult.
As I am in the central position, my voice should be coming only from this position. I will let the metronome tick for a few seconds so that you can identify the position clearly, and if you can hear the metronome located exactly in the center, then your loudspeakers are probably in phase.
If you're not quite clear about it, you should listen to the following music, which is in mono and has plenty of bass in it. If the bass reproduction seems to be thin, and you are not quite clear about the position of our voices and the metronome being in the center, then your speakers are probably out of phase. If you are still doubtful as to whether or not your speakers are in phase, you should try and put them next to one another, switch off your equipment, reverse the leads to one speaker, switch on your equipment, and then play this section of the tape again. It is the sound you heard with the voices in the center and the better bass which will determine which way the lead to one speaker is correctly connected. I am now again on the left. And if your cassette machine operates through a separate amplifier, and you undertook the wiring yourself between the units, it's possible, but unlikely, that you might have reversed the wiring of one of these leads. While you can correct it by just reversing the loudspeaker lead as Mary suggested, you might be in trouble if you have a disc record player or radio tuner unit attached also to the amplifier. In other words, all the connection leads between all the units and the loudspeakers must be the right way round. And you can check it with this cassette and a stereo test record if you have a record turntable connected to your equipment.
However, we do not want to make it too complicated for you, so if your loudspeakers were out of phase, you had better carry out one further test to confirm that all the units are in phase.
The easiest way to do this is to play a mono record, or to switch the amplifier to the mono position and then listen to a mono radio broadcast when the sound should come from the central position. Assuming you have checked that your phasing and balance are correct, you might like to listen now to some more music in stereo. The instruments of the orchestra should sound as if they're spaced across from one loudspeaker to the other, in just the same way as you'd hear it in a concert hall sitting in a central position.
I hope you enjoyed that and found the reproduction satisfactory as regards quality and location.
For a further check, we're going to invite you to listen to some individual musical instruments which cover a wide range of frequencies. They will all be played from the center, and I will announce them from there. Grand piano. Timpani. String bass, both plucked and bowed. Xylophone. Marimba. Glockenspiel.
In order to check for uneven playing speed, often referred to as wow and flutter, you might like to listen to this piano recording. If it does not sound like a first-class piano and has a waver to it, it means that there is a variation in pitch and your machine requires some adjustment.
The tape heads, capstan and pinch wheel may be dirty. And on the other side of this cassette, which as you know deals with recording, we will give you some ideas for keeping your machine clean.
We end this side with other music which is representative of the sound you can hear from high-quality music cassettes. If you have carried out all the tests and made any necessary adjustments, then the music should sound both impressive and realistic in stereo.
Now give 3 cheers, I'll lead the way. Hurrah, hurrah, hooray!
I am the monarch of the sea, the ruler of the Queen's Navy, whose praise Great Britain loudly chants.
He are his sisters and his cousins and his aunts.
He are his sisters and his cousins and his aunts. His sisters and his cousins and his aunts.
When at anchor here I ride, my bosom swells with pride, and I snap my fingers to the foeman's tongue.
And so do his sisters and his cousins and his aunts.
And so do his sisters and his cousins and his aunts. His sisters and his cousins and his aunts.
But when the breezes blow, I generally go below, and seek the seclusion that a cabin grants.
And so do his sisters and his cousins and his aunts. And so do his sisters and his cousins and his aunts.
And so do his sisters and his cousins and his aunts. His sisters and his cousins and his aunts.
was a lad, I served a term as office boy to an attorney's firm. I cleaned the windows and I swept the floor, and I polished up the handle of the big front door. I polished up that handle so carefully that now I am the ruler of the Queen's Navy. Polished up the handle so carefully that now he is the ruler of the Queen's Navy. As office boy, I made such a mark that they gave me the post of a junior clerk. I served the writs with a smile so bland, and I copied all the letters in a big round hand. I copied all the letters in a hand so free that now I am the ruler of the Queen's Navy. He copied all the letters in a hand so free that now he is the ruler of the Queen's Navy. In serving writs, I made such a name that an articled clerk I soon became. I wore clean collars and a brand new suit for the pass examination they institute. That pass examination did so well for me that now I am the ruler of the Queen's Navy. That pass examination did so well for me that now he is the ruler of the Queen's Navy. Of legal knowledge I acquired such a grip that they took me into the partnership, and that junior partnership, I ween, was the only ship I ever had seen. The only ship he ever had seen. But that kind of ship so suited me that now I am the ruler of the Queen's Navy. But that kind of ship so suited me that now he is the ruler of the Queen's Navy. I grew so rich that I was sent by a pocket borough into Parliament. I always voted at my party's call, and I never thought of thinking for myself at all. I thought so little they rewarded me by making me the ruler of the Queen's Navy. I thought so little they rewarded me by making me the ruler of the Queen's Navy. Now, landsmen all, whoever you may be, if you want to rise to the top of the tree, if your soul is unfettered to an office stool, be careful to be guided by this golden rule. Be careful to be guided by this golden rule. Stick close to your desks and never go to sea, and you all may be rulers of the Queen's Navy. Stick close to your desks and never go to sea, and you all may be rulers of the Queen's Navy.
Now side 2, which is all about recording.
I'm now speaking from the right, and this is side 2, where we'll deal with the use of your machine as a recorder. Let us first consider recording from radio transmissions. Our advice about microphone recording we'll leave until the end of this side, where there'll be some recorded sounds which you may like to try and recreate for yourself.
What you have just heard is the sound you often have when trying to record a mono AM radio transmission.
In order to get the best quality recording, you should use a stereo VHF FM tuner unit, which, if you set up your equipment properly, will enable you to hear recorded sound like this. I'm now in the center, and I hope you heard that sound spread out between your loudspeakers. And perhaps I should have mentioned before that it's essential for your tuner to be connected to a good aerial. Obviously, you will wish to record in stereo whenever possible, but the mono signal, when fed to both channels, can be helpful in adjusting the record volume controls of your cassette machine to obtain equal sensitivity on both channels. As the majority of recorders have independent volume controls for adjusting the input for recording on each channel, it's essential that these be adjusted correctly. Otherwise, you will record more volume on one channel than on the other. Here's an example of what might occur if your volume controls are not adjusted correctly. I am once more on the right, and assuming your balance control on the recorder or amplifier, or both if you have them, was set at the central position, then you will have heard the music on the left channel at about double the output of the right channel.
I have now moved over to the central position. As the majority of cassette recorders are relatively small in size, it's often difficult to adjust accurately the knobs of the record volume controls. On the other hand, the meter or meters usually do give an accurate indication of the signal being recorded on each channel. Some recorders have a meter which can be switched from one channel to the other, while some have two separate meters which are placed adjacent to one another so that the indications on them can be seen simultaneously.
I've now moved over to the left. It's difficult to set up the volume controls accurately when receiving a stereo signal, mainly because it's extremely likely that the input received on each channel will be different, as it is a stereo signal and not a mono one. Therefore, when making the initial adjustment of your record volume controls, you should first feed into the recorder a mono signal. If the original transmission's in stereo, this can often be undertaken quite easily by pressing the appropriate selector buttons or switches on the tuner unit or amplifier to convert it to mono. It should sound like this. When you're hearing a mono transmission such as this, you should adjust your record volume controls in turn so that the same level on peak notes is indicated on the meter or meters. Alternatively, feed in a mono radio broadcast of the type you wish to record in stereo. The music you just heard in mono ought, in stereo, to sound like this. I should remind you that if, when setting up to make a recording, you have altered a stereo transmission to a mono one by pressing the appropriate buttons or switches, do not forget to change back to stereo before you actually undertake your stereo recording.
And I want to remind you that practically all manufacturers of recorders recommend that the pointers on the meters should not exceed a level, usually marked in red. Otherwise, distorted signals will be recorded. If, however, insufficient signal is received, then the ultimate quality of reproduction will be poor. There will be too much background noise from the tape, and you will get hiss, like this recording.
VHF transmitters often broadcast tones before or after transmissions have commenced or ceased. These tones vary in level and frequency and can be useful for setting up the volume controls. It's important to check that your tuner or radio has been connected up correctly so that sounds which are being broadcast on the left-hand channel are heard on the left only, and those on the right-hand channel are heard on the right.
As a housewife, perhaps I may give a little advice about cleaning. While the quality of the reproduction of recordings you make can be affected by all the points so far mentioned, it is essential that the record and playback head and the erase head of your machine should at all times be scrupulously clean. It's inevitable that some oxide from the tape will, after a time, accumulate on the heads, and this could limit the frequency range of recording and reproducing, also the efficiency of the erase head. If you are using a cassette which originally had other music or speech on it, and the erase head is not clean, you may hear a ghost voice, like this. A ghost voice like this. ghost voice like this, a ghost voice like this, a ghost voice like this. The heads can be cleaned by one of two methods. The most efficient is the application of the non-flammable liquid tape head cleaner by a specially shaped blue head cleaning applicator. This forms part of the bib compact tape head cleaning kit. The head is then polished with a white polishing tool. Full directions are given with this kit.
Some cassette recorders and players have the heads in an inaccessible position, though. The easiest method of cleaning these is to use the cassette head cleaning tape. This is a cassette which contains a special textile cleaning tape instead of recording tape.
It is just placed in your machine and run through with the button or lever in the play position. It only takes a few seconds and should be undertaken at least after 10 hours playing time and before any important recording. If you don't do this regularly, then your recording could sound like this.
One bugbear of recording is that hum may be introduced due to cable leads between units being incorrectly connected or insufficiently screened, or because too many connections are made to earth or to ground, so that your recording sounds like this.
There should be only one connection to earth or ground, and that must be via the main amplifier, when your recording will sound like this.
Apart from making a very wide range of accessories for the use of gramophone record enthusiasts and owners of reel-to-reel tape recorders, Bib also make other useful aids for owners of cassette machines. These include a cassette tape editing and joining kit and a cassette salvage kit, which enable you to edit recordings and repair a tape which may by accident have wound back into the cassette. If you become tired of some of the music on your older music cassettes, you can convert them with the cassette re-record kit, and so use these cassettes for further recordings. You may also find helpful a comprehensive book, Hi-Fi Stereo Hints and Tips, written by the well-known audio critic John Borick.
Your recorder's instruction manual will give details about how to set up your microphones, and you've probably already carried out tests to compare your family's or friends' speaking with the recordings you have made of their voices.
You may also have carried out direct recordings of music through the microphones. However, so that you can compare different recordings of sound, we're providing 5 separate examples for you, all recorded in stereo from a central position. Afterwards, you might like to make similar recordings on another cassette tape. Then you can compare the quality of your recording with that on this tape. I have moved to center again now. For the rest of the tape, my voice and the sounds you're going to hear will be recorded so that you can hear them from the center. The first sound is striking a match. Tearing a newspaper. Bursting a paper bag. Knocking one lead pencil against another. cutting a piece of paper with a pair of scissors.
I am now left to wish you goodbye, and to hope that you found this cassette tape helpful in getting the best possible results for reproduction and recording with your own equipment. Goodbye.
I too wish you many interesting and enjoyable recording sessions, after which you'll hear examples of how magnificent a full symphony orchestra and other music can be made to sound when the recording and reproduction are of top quality. Goodbye.